All right, so thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Sapira Chirk. I'm the Artist Service Specialist for the Nevada Art Council. Today, we're very excited, very excited to have Clara host this workshop for us. Before I turn it over, I just want to remind you that this webinar is being recorded, and if you have to, for any reason, leave beforehand, we're going to upload it on YouTube next week, so you can go ahead and rewatch this or catch the rest of it if you missed it. And the slides for this presentation is also available in the link in the chat. So you can click on that link and download it and go through it with us, or save it on your computer to refer to later. Lastly, I want to also mention that we will be doing another workshop lecture later this month. It's going to be about how to price your artwork. So if you have any question or you have no idea how to price your artwork, please do attend. All that information will be on our website, and I'll also drop a link in the webinar chat so you can register for that workshop as well. So I'm going to introduce Clara officially. Okay, so Clara Lieu is the founder of Prof Projects LLC, an online educational platform for learning visual arts. She was an adjunct professor at the Rhode Island School of Design from 2007 to 2020, and has received artist grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council and Puffin Foundation. So Clara, take it away.
Great, thank you so much for having me. And before we get started with the lecture, if you have questions that you would like to ask, please put them into the Q&A, and I will respond to them in the last 30 minutes of the workshop. So I'm not going to stop and take questions for the first hour, but I will towards the end. And the other thing is that I find it really fun to review some people's sites. So whether it's social media, your shop, your website, don't worry if you don't have a shop link, that's totally fine, because I know some people you're thinking about selling and you haven't done it yet. So I can take a look at your Instagram or whatever, drop those into the Q&A, and I won't be able to look at everybody's sites, but we'll take a look at a few in the last half an hour and get people on voice so we can talk a little bit about your experiences and what you're looking to do. So Art Prof has a YouTube channel, and we also have a website, artprof.org. Lots of content there that's not on our YouTube channel. Best way to use it is the search bar. When you're getting started selling your work online, I think the most important thing to understand is that setting things up is by far the biggest chunk of work you're ever going to have to do. So the initial setting up your platform, taking your photos, writing descriptions, setting up a process for shipping, all those logistics, they're time consuming. And don't let that deter you though, because the thing is, once you have things set up and you have a system, then you'll notice that the maintenance of your shop is actually quite low. And so you just have to make sure you understand that, because I know sometimes people get very overwhelmed, understandably so, when they're setting up their shop. And then they worry, oh gosh, is it going to be like this all the time? It's not. In fact, you'll get to a point where a lot of what you're going to be doing is just copy pasting and doing things like renewing listings or duplicating a listing and changing 3 words. So don't worry if it feels like just so much work. This is one of the biggest questions to consider before you get going. What do you want to sell? Now, most artists have a lot of stuff going on. Now, just because, let's say, you are a painter who also makes hand-pulled prints, that doesn't mean you have to sell both. You could say to yourself, you know what? I have these really big oil paintings, but I'm not going to sell them online. I'm just going to focus on the hand-pulled prints. Other people, they just want to do merch, and that's fine too. So I think this is very important, is to distill what do you actually want to sell? Because I think sometimes people feel a pressure to put everything they've ever made into their shop, and that's oftentimes not a good idea. So really spend some time, like take a step back, look at everything you have available and ask yourself, what is the stuff here that I want to sell? Because I have some paintings and some drawings, if I were to price them appropriately, some of them would be $4,000. And the thing is, selling online, it's a really particular place. Most people are not selling paintings for $4,000 on Etsy. That's more typical for a brick and mortar gallery. So you also have to think about, well, this is a different venue than if I was selling at an art fair than I was selling at a gallery. And this actually becomes more important. What do you not want to sell? And so sometimes by a process of elimination, you can figure out more, okay, well, I've got these sculptures, but they're really tall and they're fragile. And oh my gosh, the shipping is going to be such a pain. I'm going to have to buy 50 rolls of bubble wrap. There's certain types of artworks that they're really not worth selling because sometimes between the packaging, the shipping, it is not very cost effective. Now, of course, you can have people pay for the shipping, but if you're shipping a 5-foot tall glass sculpture, I don't envy anybody that has to do that. If you're shipping a sculpture that's pretty delicate, I know a sculptor who has to have custom crates built to ship her work, and that gets very expensive very fast. So really tell yourself when you sell online, it really is you curating what you want to sell. And that sometimes also gives your shop more focus, because sometimes people go to a shop and just so much, and people feel sort of scatterbrained when they look at your shop. Whereas if your shop is more focused, let's say you do hand pulled prints and you do digital prints, and that's all you're doing in your shop, it can actually make your life a lot easier. This is a business question that I get asked very often, which is, do I need to set up an LLC, which is a limited liability company? Do I have to actually establish myself as a business? The answer is no, okay? Art Prof Projects is an LLC. I tell people the most compelling reason to get an LLC is if you have very high visibility and you need legal protection to make sure that people can't take your personal assets, okay? That's not likely to happen unless you have gigantic following with tons of people seeing your stuff, at which point I would. The other reason to set up an LLC is if you are going to have employees on payroll, which I do have, okay? But the average individual artist who wants to sell work online, you don't need an LLC. You can totally just declare as an individual. What you would have to do is have a Schedule C for your taxes. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but we have a video about taxes on our website that some of you can look at. You do, however, need to register to get a sales certificate via your state's Department of Revenue. It's really easy. I know it's a little intimidating because, I mean, you hear the word Department of Revenue and it's like, oh, what am I supposed to do with that? But, you know, most of the time you can do it online. Just go to your state's Department of Revenue, and the sales certificate, at least the states I've lived in, it's one-time annual payment. So I just pay my taxes. I think it's like before the end of January. It's once, it's not difficult. I mean, for real, I have actually had years where I didn't make that much. And so I paid like $2 in annual sales tax, which is sort of laughable. But it is nice to have that set up, because maybe at some point you will be pulling in much higher revenue, at which point you really do have to make that happen. This is really critical to consider before you set up your shop. And it's a good thing in general, not even if you're selling, but just as an artist. Who is your audience? Because I think, again, like a lot of selling, people think they have to do it all. You don't. You just need to find that niche of people who are really going to appreciate what you do. Because it's not that any artwork is inherently bad. You hear that all the time. People say things like, oh, well, landscapes with sunlight, those are so trendy right now. I should make that. But you know something, that actually becomes a problem, because let's say you're painting these sun landscapes and you don't really like doing it, but you're like, oh, I'm going to make it just because everybody else is. If you get popular doing that, that's what you're going to be doing for your career. And then it's like, you can't really say no because it's bringing revenue. So I always tell people, listen, think about who you are catering to and make work that you really think is sustainable. Because I mean, at one point with Art Prof, I was like, oh, we're small, it's fine, I can do these things. And then you actually get bigger, and it's like, crap, I can't keep this up. So it is important long term to say, okay, is this something sustainable? Yeah, I'm only getting one order once a month, but what happens when you get 5 orders a month? So think about being scalable. Because the thing about your audience is that you can find a group of people that really like your stuff, and then you go hang out where they're hanging out. So for example, one of my staff, she was making these really cute pins out of polymer clay. And she discovered when she did an in-person art fair that actually those pins were super popular with art teachers. So yeah, I mean, art teachers are just a small portion of the population, but those were the people that bought her pins. And so you don't have to appeal to everybody. In fact, I think trying to appeal to everybody is going to make the work feel more watered down. You want it to get specific, so you really target that demographic, whether it's age or profession, even location. I mean, I'm living in Utah right now, and I tell a lot of landscape artists, listen, a lot of the times when people buy landscape paintings, it's not because they think your painting's amazing. I mean, maybe yes, but more often than not, they like the painting because of what it is. So if you grew up in Salt Lake City and you've been to Cottonwood Canyon all these years, and then you see a painting of Cottonwood Canyon, you have instantly a personal connection. It almost doesn't matter what the painting is because people make that personal connection. I also know somebody else, they had a painting of a telephone pole with all these wires, and you would think, who's going to buy that? Okay, guess what? The person that bought that painting was an electrician. An electrician is going to appreciate a telephone pole. I'm not going to, but that is an example of identifying your target demographic, which is very important. I think too many people don't ever do this. Like really sit down and say, who is the audience? Is it 16-year-old kids that want to put stickers on their water bottle? Or is it a 45-year-old adult who's trying to find something to put in their living room? I mean, that's not what 16-year-olds do for the most part. Here's a really big question that really takes time to figure out. And so take your time, do your research. You have to pick your platform. So are you going to sell on Shopify? You're going to sell on Society6? Are you going to do merch via Redbubble? Are you going to sell on Etsy? Are you going to sell on your website? This is the biggest decision logistics-wise that you have to make. And another thing is you don't have to be everywhere. So a lot of people look at their profile online and say, I have to be on Etsy, I gotta have a website, Instagram, I need a Patreon and a Twitter. And you know something, you don't need all those places. In fact, it's much worse if you're on let's say you're on 8 platforms, okay? I go to your platforms and I discover that, hey, you have not updated this in a year. That's not good. And so I tell people, listen, just find a site for your selling, a shop site, or you can put it on your website. A website is really helpful, but actually I'm finding that websites are less critical than having social media. Social media, I think, is actually higher on the priority list today because it's where you get day-to-day traffic. I mean, I haven't updated my website in months, probably longer, because people aren't going to my website every day. They are going to my social media every day because they're just on the platform. So when you pick your platforms, it's really important to be consistent across. So if somebody finds, this is Dorian Epps, he has a shop called Blacktop Market, and you have to be consistent because he has another Instagram that is for Blacktop Market. He has another one that's for his own personal practice. So a lot of people will oftentimes have multiple Instagrams. You might have one that's just for your shop, Or maybe you don't need that. Maybe you are advertising just on your personal Instagram. These are the types of choices that you have to make when you're setting up your shops. This is the decision you need to make, regardless of what platform you are on. You have to decide, is it going to be, okay, here's my website and here's my shop. They're separate, okay? They do not interact besides one linking to another, okay? I know some people, they have a website, okay? But within that website, they have a portfolio gallery, which doesn't have like shipping and all that stuff on it. And they have another section for their shop where you see the prices, you see the payment, because oftentimes people will go to your website for different reasons. Let's say a curator wants to give you a show. They don't want to be bothered with the shop stuff. They'll want to go to the portfolio. The other option is you mix it all together. You just, your website, portfolio, and shop, however you want to do it. My recommendation is the first one: separate website, separate shop. And here's why. When you have your own website, one of the problems is that you have to do everything from scratch, which is exhausting. And you can mess up if you don't know what you're doing. So for example, this is the Etsy shop for Art Prof, okay? So we have our own website. We have artprof.org, which has tons of other things on it. And then we have an Etsy shop. It's separate, okay? So we link to it on the website, but that's it. This is one of my favorite things of being on a shopping platform. You will know more about your statistics than you ever thought was possible. And yes, websites have statistics as well, but it's not formatted to tell you specifically about selling. You know, like websites will tell you, oh, this many people came, this is a search term. But here it's explaining to me, hey, Etsy brought in 50% of visits to my shop. 180 people did it through Etsy search. And it tells me all these different things. The other thing too is if you go on vacation and you need to close your shop for a little bit, it's really easy on these shop websites. It's just like a click, and then you can tell people. You can even have things like you can send a message to somebody that's automatic if they try to contact you. So the nice thing about these selling platforms, everything's automated. I don't even have to think. This is what I love. I love that I click once and boom, there's the invoice. I don't have to double check the shipping address. They even do conversions for you. So this is somebody in Europe and they bought 2 pieces from me and it converts automatically to euros. I was like, oh man, I would not want to do that myself. I do think it's nice, little personal touches, because you know something, people can buy artwork anywhere. You could Target and buy a bunch of posters, okay? But it's not the same thing as when you buy from an individual artist. And so a lot of people like to add a little personal touch, okay? For me, I'm lazy. I just write a handwritten thing, but I know some people who will give you a free sticker, people who will make a card and write you something. So this is really, really nice, because if I order a print from Target, I'm not going to get a personal note from the artist. So these are little things that actually really go a long way. This to me is the best reason to have a platform and not to sell on your website. And the reason is search, okay? So here's the thing, if somebody wants to buy art, they're not going to type my name into Google and be like, oh, what's Clara Lieu selling? No, they don't know who I am, okay? Maybe someday, but not today. What they are going to do is go to a trusted site like Etsy, one that's well established, and you'll see up here, The top search for a lot of my work is actually the word haunting drawing. And so you can see I pop up here in search. Now, nobody's going to type Clara Lieu into Etsy, but they are going to type in watercolor landscape mountains, and then you pop up. You saw from my statistics that half of the traffic to my shop is via Etsy. Etsy sends those people to my shop. And this is such a big deal because oftentimes people know about what they want, watercolor portrait of Pedro Pascal, and then you can find somebody who's doing that thing. But typing in your name, it's not going to happen. So this is a very, very good reason to use a platform. It doesn't have to be Etsy. There's a whole bunch. There's like Shopify and many others you can look at. This is very important for selling work online and anywhere, art fair, gallery. You need to make an effort to use archival materials. Really avoid the cheap supplies. Now, yes, the archival materials, they always cost more. But the thing is, I made this mistake early on because in the beginning, I had all these figure drawings that I was doing. I was like, oh, I'll sell these. I have these. But I didn't think ahead that, oh, these are on newsprint. Newsprint, number one, is really fragile. And number two, it yellows over time. Now, if you send somebody a drawing and then it yellows over the next year, they're not going to be happy. So there is such a thing as saying, you know what, this is a watercolor painting. I want to be able to sell this. Therefore, I'm not going to paint it on Xerox paper. I'm going to paint it on nice quality watercolor paper. So really try to avoid those cheap supplies because people do care about that. I write in the listing, this is painted on arches, hot press watercolor paper, 150 pounds. And if you just write, oh, it's on paper, it makes you come across as less trustworthy and less thorough when you're putting things down. So here's an example. This is a photograph that I shot on the right of a beeswax sculpture that I made. So I lit the beeswax sculpture and I made a photograph. So to me, the finished result here is the photograph, okay? And you'll see this was at a gallery at one point. And, you know, I could have printed these photos out on my home printer. I mean, it would get the point across on cheap Epson printing paper, but I didn't. I went to a photo lab and I talked to them about, okay, what are the options? What's more archival? And oh boy, you can see the difference. Such a big thing. So everybody has to make a decision about this. I mean, for some people, maybe you just can't afford it. That's fine. And maybe you do want to just send an Epson print, in which case you just have to realize, oh, I can't charge as much because it's not as good quality. It's not as archival. So you have to make those decisions. And, you know, maybe you say, oh, I'm just going to sell them for $15 because it's just printed on my home printer. And that's fine. None of what I'm telling you is inherently correct. You have to evaluate your situation, your finances, what you can put into all of these efforts, and then decide, am I going to bother going to the photo lab or not? Another thing that's really handy when you sell work online is to sell work that can be bundled. So I have a whole series of these mezzotint prints. And oftentimes what people will say is, okay, well, they're individually $100, but if you buy 4, it's $350 for the group. And this is really nice because you can actually make quite a bit of money on volume. Sometimes people feel like, oh, well, I just have to have a lot of high price items. But that's actually a big mistake. You want to have a range so people feel like they have options. Like if you go to somebody's site and every painting is $800, you don't really have a lot of options as a customer. But if you have all these paintings are $800 and you have a couple that are $300, maybe you have a few that are $50, that lets people pick a little bit more. This is one I learned the hard way, which is signing your artwork. I oftentimes just didn't think of it because I was making stuff and I was like, okay, throw it up on my shop, no problem. Oh boy, people really, really care about this. This is incredibly important. In fact, to make sure I don't forget. So I sign all the artwork and then I photograph it. So you can see this is an image of a marker drawing I did. And you'll notice that I've signed it and the picture of the artwork has the signature. I will even say in the listing, the signature is in the lower right-hand corner, written in pencil. That kind of specificity is very important. It makes you look more professional. It makes the customer trust you more. That trust is very, very critical to whether people are going to actually buy something. I actually had somebody, oh, this is so embarrassing. I once sold a painting through a gallery. I didn't sign it. And the woman asked me to come to her house and sign it. And I did. And I felt like such an idiot. So don't do this. Sign your work in advance. Make sure that that happens. This is probably what is going to really make or break your shop. Artists live and die by their photographs. Now you have to imagine when people sell online, they have to feel that what they're looking at in the photo is accurate, but it all has to be appealing. You know, if I go to Crate and Barrel, I get to touch the vases, I get to look at the beds that are too expensive, I can sit on them, but it's not the same when you shop online. You have to have excellent, accurate photographs. If you don't have that, you're going to be dead in the water early on. And so I know it is time consuming to shoot good photos. It's not difficult, and I have information to help all of you, but it does take time. It's not something you can just slap onto your website. You can see this is a slide of some of the reviews that I've gotten on Etsy. And that's another thing is I know when I shop, if I'm on Etsy, I always read the customer reviews because I want to have the evidence that, oh, this is a good seller. They actually do it. And if I go and there's terrible reviews, it makes me not want to buy from them. So this is one of the reviews that I got. Notice how they talk about photos very representative of actual art, which doesn't always happen with art purchasing. So you can see how important this is for customers. Now, notice I say accuracy. That is different than a pretty photo because I actually had a bunch of figure drawings and they were really, really messy. Like there were thumbprints all over them. I was like, oh, nobody's going to buy this. This is such a sloppy looking drawing. But I posted them anyway. And guess what? Those are some of my top selling drawings. And I was like, why would people buy this? It's got thumbprints all over it. But it occurred to me, people just want to know what's there. Like if you take a photo and there's no thumbprints and it shows up with thumbprints, that's when people get really mad. Like people were fine with the thumbprints as long as they knew in the photo that I was making it very clear, hey, this is not a perfectly clean drawing. So there's no such thing as a situation where people won't buy something for some reason. People will buy anything. I mean, people bought pet rocks in the 70s. So to me, that's an example that as long as it's presented and marketed well, you can sell it. But the marketing is difficult for artists, that is. Most of us do not have business degrees. So for example, if my oil painting on the left, let's say it looks like that, but I have a photo that changes the colors and it's too yellow, and then it shows up looking like it does on the left, that is really not good because then people are frustrated that what they bought is not what it appeared to be online. And so really spend time on your photographs. So you see again, the listing photo was a very accurate depiction of the work. It is an image that truly captures the areas of crispness and fuzziness of the actual piece. They really notice this. And I think this is the quickest way to get in trouble with your customers is if you have a photo that doesn't represent what the artwork actually is. So I think when you shoot photographs, it's not just take the photo, it's take the photo and do photo editing. I almost never take a photo and not edit some part of it. People ask me a lot of questions about photographing artwork, and I do have a video on my YouTube that is extremely comprehensive. And I think Nevada has one as well. I can't remember, but don't worry, you don't need to have a fancy camera. Yeah, if you have a DSLR, do it. That's fantastic. Okay. But most smartphones now, they really do have sufficient quality. They have editing options. I mean, a long time ago, I used my DSLR. I would edit in Photoshop, and now I don't do that at all. All of it's on my phone. The editing, the shooting of the photo, it's just in my phone. Depends on what phone you have. iPhone 10, I definitely noticed, oh my gosh, wow, this is a really good camera. Before iPhone 10, I didn't really feel that way. I have a 13 now, and it's really good. Like, I just am blown away by the camera quality. And for online and social media, it's fine. The only time I tell people that, yes, you need a DSLR is if you're going to print a hard copy catalog that you want to give out to people. Yes, then you should use the DSLR, but the smartphone is totally fine. So you can see the photo I have on the right, the bowl is like a little bit tilted. I tilt it on the left-hand side to get that accurate. So spend time on this. And if you really learn how to take good photos, what to watch out for, it does become very fast, because I've been editing my artwork photos forever and ever, and I do it real quick because I know exactly, okay, these are the things I need to fix. Oh, this is crooked. Oh, this is a little too blue. So if you don't have tons of experience photographing your artwork, don't worry. It'll take time. You'll have to do a lot that don't look great. I mean, I can tell you now, I've shot a lot of photos of my work and I'm good at it. But every time I shoot a ton of photos. I don't just go in and shoot two and hope it's okay, because it's a bigger pain to have to set up. So what I tell people, just shoot, shoot, shoot. It is not uncommon for single artwork that I'm shooting 30. Now, this is a 3D piece where you have to get multiple angles. Maybe I'll shoot 100 for this. It's so easy to delete, and it's such a pain to not shoot enough and, oh, I have to go back and shoot these. Because if you have a shop and you have a lot of pieces in there, it's a lot of photography. And the thing is, you don't want your shop to have two things in it. Because if I go to a shop and there's 3 items, I'm out of there after 5 minutes, maybe even less. I'm sorry to say. But if you go to a shop and there's, let's say, 30 things, that's enough items for me to want to linger, to want to look. And so building up a volume of items is really good. Like I say to people, listen, set up the shop, add listings, but don't tell anybody until you really are ready to sell. Because people sometimes feel like, oh, the second I get the shop, I got to tell everybody. No, don't. Same thing with Instagram. If you set up an Instagram and you have 2 posts and you tell everybody, I go and I go, oh, they're not really doing much right now. If I go and, oh, you have a full grid, I say, okay, I'm going to follow you. So you don't want your shop to look empty. So here's a side-by-side. All right, look at the drawing on the left. You can see the wrinkles in the paper. It's brighter on the bottom. It's darker on the top. Like, that's a terrible photo, okay? Now, the drawing on the right, it's got the same brightness. There's no wrinkles, and it's very even in the lighting. Point of view is everybody's first impulse. You just stick your camera, look at it. But there's a lot of circumstances with 3D, you got to stand at eye level. And so these are the things that I discussed in that lecture I mentioned on my YouTube channel. So I'm not going to get into a lot of it right now because it's just very detailed. Okay, we're not going to dig super deep into pricing. It's a huge topic, which is why I will be doing this workshop for Nevada in a little bit. So I would really recommend you register for that workshop because pricing is so complicated And it's so specific to each person that there's no like one size fits all type of pattern. I will say briefly, though, that there is such a thing as a hierarchy in terms of what you can charge. And that is important to understand. In general, paintings, original paintings, tend to be at the top of the food chain. If it's an oil painting on canvas and it's fairly large, you probably can charge at least a few hundred, okay, depending on who you are. Sculpture's pretty high too, but I think the thing about sculpture, there's such a range. I mean, I know people who make polymer clay sculptures and they take them like 20 minutes. I know people who cast bronze sculptures out of plaster and it costs them thousands of dollars to make. So sculpture can be at the top, but it can also be very inexpensive. So that's why it's up there, but sort of in the middle. You can also tell yourself, okay, drawings always cost less than paintings. So if you have a shop and you have paintings, but you also have drawings, most likely in that context, it will look a little weird if your paintings and drawings are priced the same. So if you have a painting and let's say you price it 300, maybe your drawings are 100 or maybe it's 150. So I think it is important not just to think about pricing, but pricing that's relative to your work. It's not, oh, all paintings are this. It's like, what are your paintings and how much do those cost as opposed to your prints, which are reproductions. Now, prints are really excellent. They're really great because you can sell them on volume. And of course, you don't have to charge as much, which makes some people more likely to buy it. But those are at the bottom of the food chain. People will never want to pay more for an original painting, I mean, for a print than an original painting. I mean, of course, it varies from artist to artist. Some artists can charge 300 for their prints. Some people charge 15. So it's a very broad range. This is really helpful because I don't think I know any artist who's been like, I got it figured out. I know exactly what to, it's the opposite. Everybody's like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm so uncomfortable. This is so impossible. That is the default. In fact, anybody who tells me, oh, I got it figured out, I'm like, you're totally lying because nobody knows how to do this. Research prices of artist shops that have work similar to yours. So let's say I make polymer clay rings, okay? There's got to be other shops that sell the same thing. So you look at, let's say, 5 shops, they all sell rings that have polymer clay on them. And it's really nice because sometimes you look at it and a lot of people underprice. Most artists underprice at some point. I did it too, okay? And I will go to the shop and be like, really? I can charge 75? Really? Okay, they're charging 75. I thought I could only charge 15. You know, I think I can do 50 now. So it's very important to do this because otherwise you're just shooting in the dark and it's really, really hard to have any point of reference. So if you look at, this is Dorian Epps's Blacktop Market that we saw earlier, you can see that one of them is on sale for 25, the other one is 50. He has a handmade duffel bag, which is 600. And so I confess, I haven't bought a t-shirt in a long time because I'm 46 and apparently I don't wear t-shirts. But I sometimes think, oh, $50 is a lot for a t-shirt. But then I go online and, oh, geez, everybody's charging 50. Okay, I guess that's not unreasonable. So this is a really good way to put things in perspective, because I think once you've had the experience of losing money on a sale, you realize I can't do that anymore. So for a lot of people, what is helpful, just as a reference, you may not even use this, do the math, okay? Tell yourself, okay, how much do I want to make hourly? Am I okay working for $30 an hour? If you feel like, oh, that's kind of a waste of my time, I really want to be making 70 an hour. Okay, so you say, okay, well, this oil painting, I spent this amount of time, 6 hours on it. I want to be paid $70 an hour. And then you also factor in the supplies. Okay, Now, for some people, it doesn't make sense because I know somebody who's a jeweler, and she said she's had pieces that she polished for like 6 hours. Polished, okay, not the making part, but like polishing. And so she said to me, "Oh my God, if I charge that, this piece is going to cost $3,000." But you also have to not sell yourself short. And so that's another example. Hey, you know what? Maybe that jewelry piece that took 6 hours to polish, maybe that shouldn't be in your shop because it's not cost effective for that to be the case. The range of price points is very important, and it depends on what you want to sell, but consider merch. There is so much merch out there. I mean, I'm so overwhelmed, but what I tell people, don't just take your design and slap it on t-shirt, mug, tote bag, shower curtain. Don't do that, okay? Because that almost devalues your design. Research. If you guys go to a sticker website, you will be blown away at the options. So for example, match the art with the merch. This is a sticker. Kat Huang made this. And so you can see the original design is on the right. And in the eyeball, you see a universe of planets and stars. Now, how cool is it that she put it on a holographic sticker? She totally could have printed it. Okay, white sticker, white background, that's okay. But I love that it's on a holographic background because it fits the image. A lot of people make the mistake where they just slap the design on 18 things and their whole shop is like 18 items. They all have the same design. I think it really waters down the merch, and it makes it feel like you didn't invest a lot of time into really designing the merch. The other thing you can do is have merch that's more unusual. The more typical merch is, okay, t-shirt, mug, tote bag, that stuff. And that stuff can do well, but how fun are these non-permanent tattoos? Pins and charms. This is also less typical for merch. Calendars. I mean, this is my former student, Lauren. This is something she does every year. So actually in the fall, she solicits, hey, what birds do you guys want me to put into my calendars? Because every year it's a bird calendar. And so people know to anticipate this. They know that every year Lauren has a calendar. In fact, my mom loves these. So every year my mom's like, send me Lauren's calendar. I really like her calendars. So that's a nice way to market. Wrapping paper. I mean, who knew you could do this? So just don't assume merch is only t-shirts, mugs, and tote bags. It can be much more. And a lot of people will even adjust their designs so that way it fits the format a little bit better. This is so important. Create your financial systems. Got to figure out your prices. You have to have your accounts set up through whatever shop you're at. And payment is also very important. Try to accept as many payment options as possible because we have PayPal, but there's a lot of people who don't like PayPal for one reason or another. Some people don't have it. A lot of people are on Venmo. I mean, we didn't have Venmo for a long time. And in retrospect, I'm like, that was so dumb. I should have been on Venmo a long time ago because now we get traction on Venmo that we never got on PayPal. So any option you can provide is a good thing. The one thing I will say, don't accept paper checks. That's a terrible idea. Every single sketchy inquiry I've gotten, and you will get them, people are like, I'll send you a paper check. I'm like, goodbye. I'm like, you use my payment options, you don't like it, you can't have the stuff. So you really can put your foot down about payment plans. You will have to write shop policies. And this is another thing, you don't want to make shop policies and then change your mind and rewrite. It's such a pain in the butt. Like, especially if you've sold stuff on the first version of your shop policies and then you change it and you got all these orders with the new one, is such a pain in the butt, okay? I would really encourage you all accept returns. They're a pain, I know. I don't like doing them, But there's so many people, if you don't have a return policy, they just will not buy from you. And they don't happen all the time. I've only done a few. They don't happen as often as you might think. So it's worth it to have, just so people have that peace of mind. Because I think that's the thing, when people buy things, you don't have to worry about it. You say, oh, I can always return it. That's peace of mind for a lot of customers. I would make sure you're clear about your availability. So if you don't say, hey, I don't ship on weekends and holidays, people might expect that from you. And so just block it off. Just be like, nope, don't do it. I mean, you could make yourself available all the time. I don't recommend it because, again, it's probably not sustainable and it's hard for you. You don't want to do that. Shipping carriers. You want to make sure you have shipping carriers people know about. UPS, FedEx, USPS, whatever you want to use, but be clear, because I say on my site, I use the postal service. I don't ship via FedEx. And do the ones you're comfortable with. I like the post office because it's a little bit cheaper. They have everything online that you can use, but of course that's your decision. Really try to do international shipping. Okay, I was very intimidated by international shipping because I was like, oh, custom forms, it takes forever. What am I going to do? But you know what? I've had so many orders from international places. And I'm so glad that I did it, because I would have missed out on a third of my income if I had said no to international shipping. Now you can say no. If you're like, you know what, that's too complicated, maybe I'll add it later, that's okay. But you have to say things like, the customer's liable for the custom fees. You have to decide, am I going to provide insurance? And you have to be very clear about arrival time. I once had a package. It took 8 weeks to get to Germany. That's the longest I've ever had. Most of the other times I've shipped, it's been like 2 to 3 weeks. But that's why now I say to people 2 to 8 weeks. Because if they get it at 8 weeks, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you told me so. But if you say, oh, it'll be there in 2 weeks and it comes in 4 weeks, that's not good, because you're not being clear. Most people are okay with all of these things as long as you are clear and upfront about it. People really care about good packing. This is extremely important. On almost every review I have, there are comments about packing, about the packing being professional and really protecting the work. Not everybody can do this. I totally get it. If you live in Manhattan, you probably don't have lots of space for stocking shipping supplies, but it is really nice to have a few. I've had more than a few times. I had to like run to Staples at like 10 o'clock at night to ship something. And it's okay, it's just sort of a pain. So I always have a couple tubes lying around. And obviously you can shop wherever. I happen to really like Uline because they have everything. And you can also get things in bulk. So you're not just ordering one envelope, you're ordering like a package of 20. And then you don't have to do it for a really long time. So I do really recommend this if you can. If you can't, no problem. Now here's the other hard work, is for every type of artwork you have that you're going to put up to sell, you have to figure out, hey, what are the supplies I need for each of these types of work? You can see the sculpture on the right. I need to have a box. I need to have packing tape, bubble wrap, tape dispenser for that. Okay, now on the left, that's a drawing. I need to have the bubble wrapper, bubble mailer, and I need to have some sheets of cardboard that protect the artwork so nothing gets bent. Okay, so this is another thing you have to not only figure out, okay, what do I need to stock, but what goes with what. And this is another reason why I would say don't try to sell everything, because if you have 20 pieces and they all require different supplies for packaging, it's really hard to manage. So oftentimes I'll have things in multiples. So this sculpture you see on the right, I think I have like 15 of these. And so it's not hard for me to say, oh, it's one of those. Okay, boom, here we go. I know what to do. But if I have 18 sculptures, they're all different sizes and all different materials, that is very hard to handle. You'll have to do this at some point. You do need to weigh the artwork to calculate the postage. And you can do this in advance. You can do it when somebody actually buys something. But it's really worth getting a scale. And don't get the one that they sell at the postal office because it's so expensive, and really a kitchen scale is fine. This is what I use. So you don't need the one at the post office. And the Postal Service is really easy. They have a calculator, because usually in places like Etsy, you can say, okay, for this sculpture, for going to Europe, I'm going to charge this amount. Okay, you can change that amount anytime you want. So what I do is I go to the Postal Service. They have a postage calculator. So you type in, okay, I want to send this to Germany, and this is how much it weighs. And it will calculate for you, okay, to send this sculpture to Germany, first class, international, it's going to cost you $30. Now, here's a question that is very good to ask yourself. Should I offer free shipping? A lot of artists do this. A lot of them don't. It's totally your call. Let's face it, people love free shipping. I mean, I swear half the reason I have Amazon Prime, other than the movies, is so I can get the free shipping. It's great. I love it. But the thing is, it's not always cost effective for you as an artist. So you don't have to do it. So let's walk through some of the logistics. You'll have to print the shipping label. You got to go to the post office. You got to tape on the package with packaging tape. And you have to do the math, because if you say free shipping, you have to realize, oh, this sculpture costs $50. Every time I ship this piece, I'm going to eat that $50. Or you tack on $50 to the retail price, knowing that you're going to lose that $50 when you ship. And this is where it's complicated. I don't offer free shipping. I'm just like, you pay it. This is how much it costs. Do it. It's okay. Like, I don't think I've suffered on sales that much because I don't offer free shipping. So it depends on what you're shipping. Like, I would say if you're shipping things that are really heavy, maybe you don't want to do it. If you're selling things that are like 2-dimensional drawings, maybe it's totally fine. So if you look at, this is what a package is made of. So when somebody buys this print, it's the violin scroll in the middle, I need to have 2 corrugated cardboard sheets to protect it. I usually have a clear plastic photo bag to put the work inside. And then I have 2 more corrugated cardboard sheets. I tape the corners with blue tape. And then I have a bubble mailer. I print the shipping label and I put in the invoice. So this is a picture of what you need for a single shipment, okay? If you've never done this before, I know it looks so intimidating and looks like, oh my God, it's so much. But you know what? Again, take time setting up your shop. Don't feel like you have to get it up right away and no. Take your time. You want to have a good system that you can feel confident in before you get going. I think some people make that mistake. They're so anxious to get the shop up that they have not thought through a lot of these important factors. And then they set up the shop and then they realize in the middle of an order, oh, I did it. Yeah, that's not fun. It's so much better. Take your time, get it set up, have somebody review it to catch any problems. Always provide a tracking number. Again, Etsy does this for me. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to type it off the receipt. So I think that's a lot easier. Save every single post office receipt. Save the custom forms. You just never know. I have learned in many situations with my business, you have to have the paper trail just in case. I've never really had to do it, but you never know. There could be a circumstance. If you can, ship fast. People love fast shipping, okay? I bet you anything they care more about fast shipping than they do about free shipping, because almost every review talks about it arrived quickly. I was so happy it showed up so fast. People really, really like this. So of course, do what you can. You know, if fast shipping is not reasonable for your schedule, you don't have to, but it is important to be clear. You could say something like, oh, I only ship on Fridays. So if you order something on Saturday, it's not going out till next Friday. Make it sustainable. Don't make it so you're handling all these unreasonable requests. Promotion, again, another conversation, but use social media to bring people to your shop. People think people will just go to your shop. They won't. They will, however, see a post on Instagram that says, hey, my shop is open, go see this, or I added new listings, or sometimes people will have a sale. They'll say, okay, use this coupon code and you'll get 20% off this weekend only, okay? Because again, people are not gonna type Clara Lieu in there, and social media is the hook that pulls people to your shop. So I would say, unless everybody knows who you are, you probably want to get on social media, because that is what's going to make the difference. So another conversation, but what a lot of people do is sometimes, you know, on Instagram, you're only allowed one link. So people will just put their shop link there. I sometimes change the link. Like if I have a big gallery show, I'll change the link to the gallery show. And then when the show is over, I'll change it back to my shop. So that's not uncommon. Other people have Linktree, which takes you to a site which just has all your links in one place. So Linktree is another option, but that's the best way, because then what you can say is in your post, you say, oh, my shop is open, link in profile, and then people can get to it. Like if you're copy pasting a URL into an Instagram caption, that's not helpful. People can't tap on it, they're not going to go. Here's another thought on social media: Instagram flash sales. These are really effective because, you know, something, most of the time your shop is sitting there and yeah, you direct people to it. But what an Instagram flash sale does is it puts pressure on people to get it now. So I know some people will say, new listings, they're only available this weekend. And so then people go, oh my gosh, I have to buy it now. Like I can't wait because these are not going to be available. And so this is really great. A lot of people put it in their stories and they have a link to their shop. And so this is a compelling way to get people to get up and do it without you just having your shop sit there for a while. So here you can see this is an artist, Song Kang. She printed this book with her illustrations. So you can see here, she says, 68-page book, link in my bio. I have limited international shipping. The last thing I'm going to tell all of you is it is important that you build a connection to your audience. And so ultimately what your shop should be about and your social media, what is your story? Tell people who you are. Because you know something? If people follow you on social media and they like you and they like your work, they're much more likely to buy from you. I mean, I've been around for a while and Prof is established enough. I have mega fans. I have people who will buy it just because it's mine, not because it's amazing and it's a Mona Lisa masterpiece, but they're like, I really like Clara. I want to own something that Clara made. So a lot of this is social media, but don't tell yourself that it's just the item. Okay, like a lot of people, they take it really badly when they say, nobody bought it, it must be bad. It's like, no, you need to build a connection. So for example, on my website, if you go to the About page, I tell my whole story. I say, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and this is why I'm excited. So telling your story on social media, on your website, very important. Okay, you guys ready? This is what you need to set up to sell online. Pick a platform, photograph your work, write descriptions, price, promotion plan, shipping supplies, determine shipping, and shop policies. Do you see why it's so much work up front? But it does get easier as you have more experience. Okay, so Sapira, we have about a half an hour for questions and for me to review some shop links. You have to unmute people to get them to speak.
Yes, I see that there are a couple, actually there are 6 questions, and I also send you a direct message here. And if you, how about this, if you have submitted your shop link or website, please do raise your hand, then we can go through each one to look. Okay, Miriam, is Miriam here?
I'm just clicking on the site, Sapira.
And I can, if you can raise your hand, then we can unmute you and we can go over your site.
Okay, what I'm trying to do, everybody, is to do a range of sites on different platforms. So that way we see very different examples. So let's see, C Merez _art. Let's see if I can find that. C Merez, whoops, sorry about that. C Merez _art. Oh, I can't spell, sorry. C Merez, okay. Merez _art. Okay, so how about Christina? Let's start with you. And so can you put Christina on voice, Sapira?
Yeah, it's Christina Garcia, right?
I think so. Yes, Christina Garcia.
All right, Christina, you are you can go ahead and speak if you want to unmute.
Sorry for the background noise too.
Oh, don't worry, you're fine.
I'm on vacation, so there's gonna be a lot of screaming in the background.
No problem.
Yeah, so I created my Instagram account not too long ago, and I do have different kinds. I was just trying to see, well, everything you shared was pretty awesome, so thank you. I have different kinds of things related to art, so it's not just, I have like some henna up, I have some face paint up, I have like birthday cards and like just stuff that I started to promote through TikTok to see if I can get people onto my page. I haven't done any prints yet because I was worried about how to basically price everything.
Right.
So anything that I did with art, I just kind of just threw up and posted everything I had. Because usually in my past, I wouldn't have documentation. I would just sell it and be like, oh, okay, maybe that's just the word of mouth.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay.
I did do some illustrations for a book
Okay.
for the first time, which was dope, but I still don't know how to make it bigger, I guess, you know.
Okay. So you don't have a shop set up?
Not yet, and I want
Okay,
to. So everything you just said was great. I appreciate that very much. It's kind of hard to, like how you were saying, like pick something and, you know, if it's something popular, somebody just likes it, just kind of stick with the flow. Like don't have everywhere, like, you know, because I do have everywhere. I do the appropriate drawings and things, and it's just really hard because I want to do everything at once.
I know, it's really, really overwhelming. I think what I would just recommend, quick Instagram advice, is I think you're going to want to make an account that's just art, because it feels like there's a lot of personal photos here. And, you know, it's okay to have a few personal photos, but I'm looking at the website and I actually am not sure if it's an art account, because down here it feels like an art account. Okay. But then you have on the grid, there's like a ton of personal photos here. And then I'm like, is this the art account? I'm not sure.
Yes,
So
the personal photos.
Oh,
yes. The personal photos are mostly just for like makeup, because I also do makeup. So I show like my makeup stuff too. So yeah.
Okay. You probably want to have a separate Instagram for the makeup, because I think the primary thing I see, you do so much beautiful work, but it's all over the place. And
Yes.
if I come to your Instagram, I'm not really sure what you sell. It's
Okay.
unclear.
Okay.
So is this like this is a reel of a digital illustration?
Yes, the Procreate one. So I just did it and I just did a reel off of it.
Okay. I think this would be beautiful as merch. Have you thought about merch?
No, not yet. I've just been very weird about it's been so weird to sell stuff. So I started selling things about 2 years ago. So the pricing really makes me feel uncomfortable to set because I'm not really sure where I'm like, this is the
Oh, I
right price for
know.
this, or like it's so scary to put a price on your stuff.
It is. I'll tell you, the reason I brought up merch is because this is such a beautiful pattern. I mean, I feel like if you go, there's a wonderful website, it's called Spoonflower, and they do merch, but it's very focused on textiles. And I
Ooh,
could so imagine these pomegranates as a scarf. They would be beautiful as a shower curtain, like the individual illustration, I'm sure you can do things with, but because
yes.
I'm seeing patterns, I think this would be great as a textile.
Thank you. I think that you said what was it called again?
Spoonflower.
Spoon flower. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Sapira, can you get, let's see who's up next. How about Robert Lynn? Can you get him onto voice?
Sure. Let me find Robert. Okay, Robert, you are allowed to talk, so if you can unmute.
We hear you, but it's very broken up, Robert. Yeah, I don't hear you very well. Do you hear Robert, Sapira?
No, it's really broken up. Robert, you might have a bad connection or a bad mic. In any case, if you can try logging out and joining in again, and we can try
Okay, we'll
another
come back
artist, or we could, yeah. it's
if
up
we
to
have
you.
time. Okay. Okay, how about can you get whose is this? Somebody from Reno, Nevada. Let me find their name again.
Oh, Miriam, here's Miriam. I'm gonna allow Miriam to talk. Miriam,
great.
you can go ahead and talk.
Mute. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Hi, thank you so
Hey.
much. Much appreciated.
Okay. So this is your shop. How long have you had it?
I'm almost embarrassed to say, but I think I've had it for almost 3 years now.
That's not embarrassing. I mean, people have different things going on in their lives, You don't have time to do it all the time necessarily. Okay, so these are mostly prints that I'm looking at?
Yes, they're all giclée prints that I have printed here in Reno.
Okay. Trying to see, how come I can't go back? I'll just go here. Okay, so what's been your experience selling on this shop? Is there anything that's frustrated you or?
The only thing really, I've enjoyed it for the most part for many of the reasons you mentioned, being able to go on vacation and being able to get my package labels and all that through Etsy is really wonderful. What I don't understand about is SEO and what you just were talking about, getting more of a, I think, social media presence, just how to get more people, I think, to see my work.
Sure.
And I mean, a big consideration I have right now is to also establish a local presence physically in galleries or shops if I can. But I think the reason I said I'm a little embarrassed, and that's not my work there at all. So, okay.
What is your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is 39. And then separately Mirlor, MIRLOR 93.
There you are.
Okay. There I am. Yeah.
So you're wondering how to get from your social media to push people to your site.
Yes, and I do
The SEO.
occasionally see Instagram says for $5 or Facebook will boost your post. And the problem for me is I have no idea what they mean by that. So I usually don't go for it.
Don't do it. It does not work. It
Oh,
doesn't.
okay.
The reason it doesn't work, I can tell you because I see artists' ads all the time on my Instagram, and I'm just swipe, swipe, swipe. I never look at them because if I don't have a personal connection with the artist, it's so rare that I'll, in the middle of my typing, say, "Oh, look at that beautiful bear print." I'm not going to do that. Like I just won't. So forget about the ads. Don't do them.
Okay.
What would be better is for you to really start interacting with people. So for example, here you say birds that visit mom's backyard. So that is descriptive, but people really like it when you can get specific and tell a story. Like what kind of birds? Like you just say birds, but it's very different if you say this fat sparrow, you know?
Right. Right. Well, does it make sense also? The reason that became a focus for me is my mom has dementia and she is in bed a lot and she's looking out of her backyard window onto the backyard. That's where she's seeing these birds. And that's why they've become special to me, is I'm trying to bring some bright spot into her world now that is shrinking daily. So
you have to decide, you know, what you're willing to share personally, but what you just told me is so much better than this text caption. Because what a lot of artists will do, you'll see this on Instagram, people will write oil on canvas, 16 by 20. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm sorry, but this is very interesting. But you talking about, oh, these birds are to help brighten my mother's day. That is so lovely. And all of a sudden, I'm going to look at this differently. I'm not going to say, oh, birds, whatever. I'm going to say, oh, birds that are meant to brighten my mother's day. Like that's the story you want to tell. Another thing I would say too is in terms of your shop, are these photos in frames? Are these one of those things where you like put the artwork in and it pops out an image with it in a frame?
No, these are Illustrator images I create myself. So so I take, because right now I primarily am working digitally. So I create a separate file and make a frame, I shadow it and all that, and I put my image in it. So I create these myself.
So here's the thing, when people buy this print, is it framed?
No, but I'm listed as what do I call it? Print only. And I stress that I'm not selling them framed. I actually did have an experience where one of my first customers thought it would be. And I ended up shopping for a frame and sending them a frame. Because
my thought for everybody, just don't deal with framing. Because when I look at this picture, my assumption is it's coming in the black frame. Okay. And you're saying verbally, there's no frame, but you know what? People are so lazy online. You can't count on them reading all the fine print. I'm going to just, it comes in a black frame. And then when it shows up without a black frame, where's my black frame? You know? So I would get rid of that. And the other thing is, in general, I've seen a lot of stuff like this where people have like a picture of a stock living room and they like put the painting on the wall. I think are so awful and corporate looking. And I think you're much better off just doing this.
So you don't want to, because the reason I created those was to give people a feel for what it would look like on the wall, you know.
Well, but here's the thing. First of all, every time I've given somebody something in a frame, they always take it out. People never want your frame choice, ever. So the thing is, it's almost like a waste of your time. And then the photo is misrepresentative of what they're getting. So showing this would be much better because that's the first impression. And again, that's already happened to you where somebody wanted the frame, they didn't get it, and then you had to go do it.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I would think about that. And I'll just tell you the other thing about social media is you have to interact with people. Like, do you comment on other people's Instagrams ever?
I do. I comment on other people's Instagram. Oh, absolutely.
Do you engage with people in your posts? Because I don't see a lot of comments here.
I usually will respond but maybe I haven't here. I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, sorry, I just lost my browser for a sec. Okay, here we go. Well, because here's the thing, what everybody does on social media, they post their thing and they're like, oh, nobody replied. Well, here's why. You didn't initiate a conversation. So sometimes people will post, let's say, an image like this, and you can post something like, you know, I'm not sure I like the pink on the flowers. Do people think it should be blue? And then you'll get people saying blue, pink, blue. That's such a simple thing. But when you ask questions that are really clear cut, like yes or no to the blue, they will reply. But if you write, hey guys, what do you think? No one's going to reply.
Got it. That's very interesting.
Try to push the engagement, because I think right now it's just not happening.
Okay. And do you have anything, I mean, is it important for us to understand SEO or, get more, I guess it has to do with tag words we use and so on when we describe our items? Are there any secrets to that? I guess I should just throw that out there.
Specificity is incredibly important. If you write sparrow bird, that's better than just bird. If I write Utah landscape instead of landscape, that's already closer to what I have. So I would just say chunk it up with specifics, because guess how many landscape watercolor paintings exist in the world? Millions, okay? But how many Utah landscapes in watercolor exist? Not as many. And that's where you're targeting your audience.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you, Miriam.
And thank you for your great videos in general.
Sure, happy to help. Okay, let's see. How about Yaneli? Sapira, can you get them on voice? And that might be the last person we look at. So sorry we didn't get to everyone.
Hello.
Hey, all right. So let's take a look at your website. Tell me where you are with selling and where you are with your website.
Okay, so I have an Etsy shop that was active a while ago. I stopped doing the things that I was selling there. So I moved more into the painting and the sculpture, but this is more like my professional website.
Okay.
I don't feel ready to sell my artwork. I was paying attention of what you were talking about, the to target your audience, your customers. I think my art is too personal, and as an artist, you have these insecurities.
Oh
It's
yeah,
not
I know.
good enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm kind of still in the transition of producing things that people might be interested in buying. I would like to explore the printing option. And thank you so much for the resources that you provide. And I'm a fan of you, by the way. I've been listening to your YouTube channels, and
great.
And I will appreciate your input.
Yeah, sure. I love your sculptures, especially this one is so unusual. I love the character of the person. And I think there was another one here that also has a person in it. So one thing I like to do is when I look at people's work, I say to myself, what stands out that I don't typically see? Now, a lot of people will make cups and ceramic pieces, and I love the hummingbird here, but what really stands out to me is the ones with people, because you don't see this every day. Most cups and bowls are sort of decorative. You don't really see a narrative here. And so I don't know if you're willing to make work to sell. But let's say you have 2 of these, you make 10 more, and I don't know how long these take to make. But so you have a group, you have 10 pots that each have a different person. People love seeing that variation.
Okay.
So that could be really fun. And then your 2D work, what stuck out to me is I really love this. Is this, oh, it's acrylic with crochet? Oh, so it's a little bit 3D?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh.
I like to work with different textures, so I incorporate different mediums in my artwork. And this is a working process. I'm preparing for an art exhibition. So yeah, this is part of that.
I really like this piece for a couple of reasons. For one thing, it's simpler than some of your other compositions because you have like the still life is it's super, whoops, sorry about that. It's super busy, which is not in itself a problem, but this stood out to me because it's just really simple and bold. Like I love that red. I love the texture that's on it. And you know something? I see lots of acrylic paintings. I see lots of crochet, but I never see them together. Like I don't think I've ever seen this. And then the strawberry is also cut out. And I think this would be a beautiful object. And you might not even do a square page. Let me show you. This is one of my friends, Diana Corvell, because if you think about it, most artwork is that sort of default rectangle. And Diana did these beautiful lockets where she would buy old lockets at, say, like an antique store, and she would paint portraits of people. So somebody would give her a picture of her friend's eye, and she would put the painting into a locket. Now, picture, if this was just a rectangular painting of an eye, it's not remotely as interesting. So that's something you can think about. And then the other thing is you can also do variations on the strawberry. Let me go back. Sorry, I think I lost your link. Sorry. What is your Instagram again? Oh, no, here it is. Got it. Sorry. So we have the strawberry. I mean, what if you do another one? It's a plum. Another one's an apple. Another one, because I do think people like seeing the variations on theme for an artist.
Okay, thank you. That's a good idea.
But you also have some other really cool work. So you have to start making decisions. You have to say, what do I want to do? Like, this is a wonderful composition, but one thing is that it's 30 inches by 24. That is pretty big. If you think about people buying something for their home, most people don't have gigantic walls where they can put a big painting. So if you make paintings that are smaller, sometimes they're easier to sell for that reason.
Which size do you recommend to be more like?
I mean, it depends. Like, for example, that locket I showed you, that's tiny. Okay, you could fit that anywhere. You could buy 5 and put them in a group and they'd be really cute. But I think most people like 8 by 10 is pretty flexible. And then anything smaller. But once you get up to like 2 feet, that starts getting very large for the average person. Yeah. And to be clear, that's so different from a gallery. Like in a gallery, people are fine, usually because they're collectors and they own gigantic houses that are for their collection. You know, those people don't shop on Etsy for the most part. So you have to be conscious of your audience.
Right.
But you've got great work. I think it's just a matter of putting together logistics and making decisions. You have to make so many decisions when you decide to sell your work.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay, so actually let's take a look at oil pastel smudge. Carol, we can fit you in.
All right, Carol, you're allowed to talk.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey. All right. So tell me about your work.
I came up with the concept of creating art with stencils, and I'm really focusing on teaching it. That seems to be a big part of my focus. And then I also do wish to sell
Okay.
pieces.
Okay.
So I explained, what it is, the method, how it was invented.
Right.
So I did a lot of that. I believe I'm spending more time on the selling of my classes
Okay.
than
Well, I can give you help with
actually.
that if that's helpful to you.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
I've
Sorry. I think I maximized that. Okay, here we go. Let's do the default view. Come back. Sorry. So is there anything you've been struggling with as far as selling your classes?
probably part of it is the cost, and we've gone through a lot of storms lately, so it's tough to really plan a class, because if I lose a class or lose a session, it's really hard to get people back. So, but that's one thing that I'm struggling with. But
Okay.
the next one is, should I get involved with the classes online, and how and who would you suggest I might approach?
You mean to take the class?
For people to take the classes online, or to get into the Zoom online classes.
Right.
I don't know what formats. I mean, we know Etsy and Spoonflower and
Right.
Redbubble, and all of those are one buy this and thank you very much.
Right.
When you get into the classes, who do you recommend?
You mean?
And you can go to the Facebook page if you want, for Oil Pastel.
Sure. Okay, let's go there.
Yeah, try that.
So you're having trouble getting people to sign up?
Well, yes, I would like larger classes.
Yeah, of course. Well, this might seem like a not very important thing, but it really is if you want to teach online. This is the only place I see your face. I don't see it anywhere else here or on
Okay.
your YouTube, because if I go here and I click on your YouTube video, it's limited to your hands. And of course, that's important. I mean, that's the whole point of your technique. But I can tell you, as somebody who has taught online quite a bit, a lot of it is people trusting you as a person to teach you. And so I would say on your Facebook page, on your website, you have to make your face more visible. And I know some people are very hesitant to do that. I get it. I mean, or people say to me, oh, I'm not a 25-year-old model. I'm like, guess what? Most of the world is not. And in fact, some people really don't like that. They like seeing a real person, who is wearing, a crappy fleece and glasses, So is that something you would be willing to do? Because I think that's a big impact in terms of teaching online.
Sure. I can see me going more in that direction.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to have things dated, which is kind of odd. Well, hairstyles, the glasses, clothes, things like that. I want something more always.
Yeah.
It's funny, I think about Martha Stewart. I'm kind of in that era. And she's always young, no matter where they put her. So it's kind of interesting.
I mean,
that.
I think you'll find if people like you, they won't care about stuff like that. I mean, I have videos on my YouTube channel from 2015, and they're so different than the videos I have now. But guess what? My fans really like it. They find it entertaining because they're like, whoa, Clara, you changed so much. And I think it's not important. Don't worry about the dated thing, because you are who you are. And that's fine. And if you are putting yourself out there, people will be okay with it. People oftentimes say to me, well, I'm worried somebody will say something mean to me about my appearance. And yes, that can happen. But you know what? That doesn't happen until you get really big. Because I noticed on my YouTube channel for the longest time when we had no followers, it was crickets. Like we didn't get any comments. And then we get troll comments now, but guess what? It's because we have a high following. So I wouldn't worry about that. And I would say your website, because you send people here, right, to learn about the technique.
Yes.
Okay. So in general, on a website, people really don't like walls of text. And this is just one big wall of text. And this is terrible to say, but people will do this. They'll go, oh, I'm not going to bother reading that. So they read nothing, which is not good.
Well,
Whereas,
did you go to the Facebook page? Please.
Right.
Because I don't show a lot of pictures of myself or my students because I feel like it's personal. I show more of the artwork.
It is important to show the artwork for sure, but I don't see you on this.
Okay.
Now, it would be different if you were selling, well, I think it's always important. We actually have a video, it's called Do Artists Need to Show Their Face? You could put it into artprof.org and find it. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to, but the impact of people getting to know you as a person, especially as a teacher, is so impactful. So I would just try it, put some photos of you. Like I'd really like to see on your techniques page, I would like to see pictures step by step, because something, you've got the YouTube video, but some people don't like videos, especially older people like me. I'm not 16, I'm not looking at TikTok all day. I would rather read something. And so here it's fine to have a lot of text, but you got to break it up with images, because a lot of people will look at this, they just won't read it. So cut back on the text, add images, add pictures of yourself on Facebook and on your website. And I think that'll just make you as a teacher more prominent.
All right, perfect. Thank you. That helps a lot, Clara.
Oh, good. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's not something that gets built right away, and don't get discouraged, because nobody wanted to listen to anything I had to say for the longest time. And it took like 6 years for us to get there.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, so just as a quick reminder, as we wrap up, everybody, you can go to the Art Prof YouTube channel, just type in Art Prof. And we also have artprof.org, which is a free site. And the best way to use it is to type stuff into the search bar. So Carol, if you want to know about the face thing, just type in, do artists need to show their face? And that stream will pop up, because we do talk about that very in depth.
Great, thank you so much. Yes, please do follow Clara on her social media, a wealth of information. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And you did record this. It's going to be posted on Nevada's YouTube.
Yes, the Nevada Art Council YouTube site will be sending out to the attendees and those who missed the webinar a link when it's up. And don't forget to sign up for the next class, which is how to price your artwork. That link is in your chat box. Thank you again, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. That was so fun, everybody. Good luck with all of your projects.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.